probability IB questions, problem 9. In problem 9, they say that a student chooses between mathematics SL, mathematics HL only. They give us the probability of choosing SL as 6/10. They say if a student chooses SL, then the probability of them choosing further math is 2/10. This is what they gave us in the tree diagram in this problem. And they also say if the student chooses HL, then the probability that they choose further math is 1/2, or 5/10, 0.5. We can use our knowledge of tree diagrams. Just do a quick refresher here. We know that when we add these two probabilities together, they have to equal 1. If we add these two together, they have to equal 1. If we add these two together, they have to equal 1, because they're complements of each other. So the complement of choosing SL is that you choose HL. The complement of choosing further math is that you choose not to do further math, and vice versa. In order to complete this, we can just use the knowledge that this plus this is equal to 1, this plus this is equal to 1, and this plus this is equal to 1. We fill that out, and now we have a tree diagram that we can use. In A, they say find the probability of a student choosing not to do further math. Well, like I say, in A right here, there are two cases where students can choose not to do further math. They can choose SL and not further math, or they can choose HL and not further math. So they can go down this path and say SL and then not further math, or they can go down this path right here and say HL and not further math. What do we do when we're going down the line on a tree diagram? We multiply. So we know that the probability of choosing SL and not further math is 6/10, which we see right here, multiplied by 8/10, which gives us 48/100, 0.48 right here. And then we have another one. Like I said, there are two cases. So the probability of a student choosing HL and not further math is 4/10 times 5/10. Say, Miss Barry, where did we get that? 4/10 multiplied by 5/10. 0.4 times 0.5, which is equal to, well, 2/10, 20/100, 20%, 1/5. Again, we can use percents, decimals, or fractions when we're talking about probabilities. Now, what do we know about probability when we have two events in a tree diagram like this that fulfill what we're looking for? Well, we add them. So the probability of choosing not further math is equal to the probability of choosing SL and further math, or and not further math, plus the probability of choosing HL and not further math. This is 48/100 plus 20/100 equals 68/100. In part B, they say, given that a student chooses further math, what is the probability that the student has chosen SL? Again, this is another one of those conditional probability problems, and we can rearrange this wording so it makes a little more sense to us. So follow along on number 9, part B, and say, what is the probability that the student has chosen SL given that the student chooses further math? That's what this notation means right here. It's saying, what is the probability of a student choosing SL given that they chose further math? We know that this is equal to the probability of a student choosing SL and further math. That's right here. Put that in peach like I did before. And the student choosing, down here, further math. So we can look at, I'm going to scroll up here, our tree diagram and find the probability of a student choosing SL and further math. That's just down this line, choosing SL, choosing further math. So we multiply 6/10 by 2/10 and we get 12/100. And then we say, okay, well, what's the probability that a student chooses further math? Well, there are two cases where this happens. They either take SL and choose further math, or they take HL and choose further math. So again, we multiply down these lines. We say 4/10 by 5/10, multiplied by 5/10 is 2/10 or 20/100. What do we do again when we have two events that fulfill what we're looking for on our tree diagram? Well, we add them. So we say our probability of SL in further math plus our probability of HL in further math. Got that right here. Well, that's equal to 32/100. So we know our probability of choosing SL given choosing further math is equal to 12/100 divided by 32/100. So the probability of choosing SL and further math divided by the probability of choosing further math. Now this isn't the final answer. You'll have to plug it into your calculator and find what that gives you. So plug in 0.12 divided by 0.32, and that will give you your answer. I believe what I found when I multiplied this was that this is equal to 375/100. And I can ask you, okay, well, if this is equal to 375/100, what is that in percent? Before I type it out, I'm sure you have it in your head. 3.75. Did I say 3.37.5%? So again, we can use fractions, decimals, or percents. In this case, a decimal or a percent is what we have written down here. If you have any additional questions on these problems, make sure that you come in before or after school or ask during class.